Let's talk about the Bengals situation and what it could look like come Monday. To do that, Ryan Wilson is here to give us Monday morning headlines on Friday. So starting with the Bengals and Jets, give us your Monday morning headline from this one, Ryan.
Jeremy, just to be clear, last week 3-2 in the old bowl prediction headline, so I'm off to a good start. This time around, Jets, Joe Flacco remain elite, and the old Bengals fall to 0-3. A little fun fact for you. Not so fun. I'm a Steelers fan, but the fun part of it is I had to get the old Bengals tattoo over the summer because I lost a bet to our buddy John Breach, Pick Six Podcast. Old Bengals tattoo is 2-0, while the Bengals themselves are 0-2. So I think the issue here is Joe Flacco, and I'm sort of only half kidding. Played great down the stretch, those final 2 minutes that we've been talking about all week, and that win over the Browns. And the issue on the other side of the ball, of course, is what is going on with that Bengals offense. Spent so much money in the offseason to upgrade the offensive line in quotation marks. The offensive line has somehow been worse. Joe Burrow's on pace to get sacked 111 times. That's not hyperbole. That's actually what the pace is if they don't fix things, and there's not going to be a quick fix. Either La'el Collins hasn't practiced this week. We'll see if he plays. But there are concerns on the offensive side of the ball for the Bengals, the team that clearly went to the Super Bowl and represented the AFC. While the Jets are coming off a huge win, Robert Saleh has those guys buying in. They have playmakers and their young players like Breece Hall and, of course, Garrett Wilson. And Joe Flacco, for another week, Jeremy, will remain elite.
Yeah, there's another quarterback named Wilson coming back next week. As Zach Wilson set to come back, so we could have a quarterback controversy brewing with the Jets. Maybe that'll be a headline for next week. Next up, let's talk about 1-1. The Detroit Lions in Minneapolis to face the 1-1 Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings are apparently who we thought they were. Kevin O'Connell had us fooled in the first week of the season that he'd fix Kirk Cousins. Put Kirk Cousins under the lights, and he turns into Andy Dalton, it turns out. So I think this is an opportunity for the Detroit Lions to have a winning record for the first time since 2019. Now, listen, here's something to keep in mind. When they had that winning record in 2019, they finished 3-12-1. Matt Patricia was the coach. They have Dan Campbell now, who I think his players would run through a wall for, and that's how they're playing. Jared Goff is playing well. Amon-Ra St. Brown is turning into one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, have been doing great things in the backfield. And of course, Aiden Hutchinson, their first-round pick, has been balling out, already getting double teams as an edge rusher after his dominant performance last week. On the other side, the good news is the Vikings aren't playing primetime. The bad news is that Kirk Cousins, you're not sure which quarterback is going to show up. And if it's the one that we've seen at times sort of no show, I would expect the Lions to put up a good fight, and I think they have a really good chance to win this game. This isn't your Matt Patricia Lions. This isn't your historically bad Lions team. This team feels like it's a little different than they were a year ago. They're taking that next step, and the next step is going to be to have a winning record. Enjoying
that Hard Knocks bump. They were slated for 6 wins, well below the Vikings in terms of their odds to win the NFC North at 9-1, but looking good so far. Ryan, in the late window, the Rams go to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Another game with both teams sitting at 1-1. What's your Monday morning headline from this one?
Listen, I say it all the time, Jeremy. I am mesmerized by Cliff Kingsbury's handsomeness. If he looked like Rex Ryan, he would not have a job anywhere close to the NFL. But it is what it is. Handsome people have a benefit in this world, and credit to him for that. I'm not sold on him as a head coach. That said, I think it's time that we see the Cardinals make their move in the NFC West. I think they're going to take down the Rams based solely on the fact of what we saw at the end of that game last week, that comeback win against the Raiders. It was all Kyler Murray all the time. We heard Josina Anderson talk in the previous segment about how this team is trying to figure out in Arizona how to start a little faster. Historically, they played really well under Cliff and Kyler to start the season. They were 7-0 last year, which seems like a distant memory. Finished 11-7, 5-2 the year before that. Finished 8-8. They were without DeAndre Hopkins to start the season this year, but I think they have an opportunity to win this football game against a Rams team that's the defending Super Bowl champs, of course. But the issue is Matthew Stafford 100% healthy? The elbow concerns linger for me. He hasn't been as accurate as perhaps he's wanted to be or as I've wanted him to be in terms of watching him as a viewer, and I think that's a concern. And I think if Kyler Murray continues to I'm going to steal the Russ Wilson thing. Let Kyler cook. If he continues to cook, that's going to be trouble for that Rams defense. I think they go in there and sneak out a win.
Rams 3.5-point favorites, and of course the winner of this game are going to get top spot in that NFC West, at least temporarily, because the San Francisco 49ers 1.5-point favorites as they head to Denver to face Danger Russ and the Broncos on Sunday Night Football. What about this one, Ryan?
Yeah, this may not even be a bold prediction because -1.5 feels like a slap in the face to the Broncos, who are the home team with Russ Wilson. But we saw altogether how the first 2 weeks unfolded for the Denver Broncos. So I think this is an opportunity for Jimmy G making his first start of the season. He doesn't miss a beat. He goes into Denver and he's going to beat that Broncos team. Nathaniel Hackett's had a tough go of it over the first 2 weeks. I think we can all agree on that. Russ Wilson not much better, and I don't know if it's going to get fixed this week. And the point spread seems to indicate that Vegas doesn't think so either. Jimmy G came in and played extremely well last week. Terrible break for Trey Lance, but it gives Jimmy G an opportunity to prove that he maybe should have had the job all along. He's going to go in there. I think he's going to continue to deal. I think on the other side of the ball, that offense is going to continue to sputter for the Broncos as Nathaniel Hackett figures out how to be both a head coach and a play caller at the same time. So far, it hasn't worked, and I don't think it's going to change this weekend. Jimmy G, by the way, is 20-8 lifetime against the AFC, but he's 0-2 against the AFC West. Those 2 losses against the Chiefs. He's never faced the Broncos. I think he gets to 1-0 against the Broncos career-wise after this weekend.
Going for his 32nd win as a starter for the 49ers in 46 games. That's a 70% win rate as a starter. Pretty darn good. Lastly, Trevor Lawrence going for his first NFL road win as the Jags go to L.A. to face the Chargers on CBS. Ryan, they're in first place. What's your Monday morning headline here?
They are in first place. You know, Jeremy, how if you hear something enough times, you start to believe it. I am a victim of Stockholm Syndrome with Will Brents on the Pick Six podcast. He's been talking up the Jaguars for weeks. He thinks they're going to win the division, and he's talked me into it. I'm convinced after the way they played under Doug Peterson and the evolution of Trevor Lawrence, they're going to go to L.A., and they are going to beat that Chargers team. Now, listen, I picked the Chargers to win the Super Bowl in part because I love Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's banged up. And Brandon Staley, inexplicably, has turned into Mike McCarthy in terms of being aggressive and going on 4th down. He's been the exact opposite this season, which has been a weird thing to watch. But I think the Jaguars are healthy. Travis Etienne is playing well. Trevor Lawrence is playing like the #1 overall pick, and Doug Peterson is making everyone comfortable in that offense and putting them in position to make plays. And oh, by the way, that defense, led by Josh Allen, is a really good young unit. So I think they go in there and they give the Chargers some trouble, especially if Justin Herbert isn't 100%, and we don't expect him to be. And they get him out there with a win, and that's arguably the biggest win they've had since probably the 2017 season when they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots.
Jags have never won at the Chargers. 0-5. The last time they won on the road was the last home game for the Oakland Raiders. He is NFL analyst, journalist Ryan Wilson, giving us a peek into his Back to the Future-inspired sports almanac with Monday morning headlines on Friday. Although I wouldn't bet on any of those. Pick Six Pod, latest episode. Ryan and Will Brinson are recapping last night's game between the Browns and the Steelers. Are the Browns back? Maybe is it time to break the glass on Kenny Pickett? Download and follow the Pick Six podcast wherever you get your podcast audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.